Well, if people online can hear me, there is a Q&A section. Just join the Hangout and mention your email address there, and we'll add you to the Hangout.
Yeah, I could hear you this time, Scan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very clearly.
Perfect, perfect.
Cool. So maybe we can continue discussion over here, and if someone joins in, I'll get them on board. So Benson, about the block size debate that I was talking to you yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So my point was that there are two sides of the coin, and one of the side is that the miners, some of them, suppose somebody discovers a big size of a block, and they take time to propagate it. So suppose it takes 20 or 30 seconds to propagate that block to other miners. Meanwhile, the miner who mined the previous block, they can start mining on the next block. So it gives them a bit of advantage. And Gavin Anderson and some people have, they have run simulations, and they have found out a minor advantage that it gives people. But right now, 8 MB is not a big block size, so as to affect the transmission time. But as we go forward, this will be a bigger and bigger problem. And the other side says is
Right now,
yeah, and
because
the
I
other
thought it was
side has
legal
its
for
own
me.
use. So
So that's my primary thing. That if this problem can exist with 20 MB, it should exist with 1 MB as well. So I've not really looked deep into it, and I don't see Amitabh around as well. But do you have any idea as to how is that problem being sorted out right now?
yeah, right now with 1 MB block size, the propagation time throughout the world is 20 seconds at max.
Okay.
So right now that it isn't a big problem, and when you run the simulations, the advantage for somebody owning 30% of the network is around
Right.
0.1%. So 0.1% is pretty low compared to the variations that go on in the mining pools. So right now, with 1 Mbps, the advantage that a block that a pool gets is just 0.1%.
0.1%. Yeah. Cool. So I've not yet really looked into it myself. Let me look into it, and then I can probably,
Yeah,
ping back or something of that sort. I do know that it's one of the more important discussions happening right now, but I'm just trying to see as to where it goes. From what I understand, this is a scalability issue of keeping it at 1 MB. And even if propagation time is a problem, scalability has to come first, as far as I can see. Because at the end of the day, if you start filling up 1 MB blocks and if Bitcoin becomes useless or certain transactions become useless, that is a far bigger problem. At least now with the problem which you're talking about in terms of propagation time, it would centralize Bitcoin further at worst. So only few players would be able to control nodes and things like that, and that will definitely become another problem in time. So just give me some time on this, Skang. Let me just look into it, and then I'll probably come back with something a bit more comprehensive.
right. And have you looked at the Lightning Network proposal?
I'm sorry,
The Lightning Network proposal. It's a proposal
I didn't.
about Lightning Network, where it's a alternative system to take the transactions off chain.
Your voice is breaking up, Skang.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't get any of that.
Just a second.
Yeah,
Yeah. So have you looked at the Lightning Network proposal?
not yet.
Well, it's a proposal to it's actually a mechanism to take things off chain. But the thing is that It's a mechanism to take things off chain, but the problem there is it needs one to open a single channel between the person being paid. So it has its own problems, but it looks really promising.
Yeah, I'm just kind of center of network of micropayment chunks. So these are side chains, right?
No, not side chains, but it's a totally new mechanism, Lightning Network.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
it's
paper.
on
So
top of Bitcoin.
do
It's
give me
not
a
an
bit.
altcoin or
Uh,
a side coin.
join. Yeah, I just took a look at it. I think it's in a very early stage. So I've been looking into side chains and stuff, and I realized they're not going to be very feasible in the long run, also. So
Mhm. What's
not
your
sure.
what's your view on side chains?
It introduces a factor of trust, right? And that's the biggest problem. You will end up having a blockchain which has got a lot of trust, and then some other side chain which has got a slightly lower amount of trust. It will cause a lot of confusion, especially because most of the side chains will be used by micropayment merchants, and I don't believe that that's something that should be implemented right now until it can be as equal to the blockchain in terms of the amount of trust that's required to work with it.
Right. Yesterday, we were talking about altcoins, and you had some views about the value
I
provided
lost
by.
you again.
Yeah. I was saying that yesterday we were talking about altcoins, and you had some views about the value provided by the other cryptocurrencies like Litecoin or something. Shikha asked us a question yesterday. So, first of all, what are the Indian cryptocurrencies that you are aware of? Some of them I know of is, of course, Trustor, which we have been debating about as a
He's
scam.
not Indian. God knows what the hell they are.
Yeah, and we've heard about Lakshmi Coin. It didn't catch up much, but
Yep.
some people seem to know MITs.
I think there was a
MIT.
Kashmir coin, saffron coin.
Right, and there is a project called Search Coin, which pays
Doge
you.
coin is not an altcoin.
Yeah, it's not an altcoin, but it's a project that pays you Bitcoin for searching on their network.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know Vishal. It's a nice product actually because it's not an altcoin at all.
Right. So do you feel such networks, they might have value? And what is your view on proof of stake coins?
Okay. So what we are looking at here right now is a fundamental problem of how do you create a national cryptocurrency? And I'm not really understanding what exactly is being asked there because those two words should not be together. If
Right.
we look at it's grammatically it's incorrect because right now, if you look at cryptocurrency, it surges through the internet, right? Now,
Right.
how do you actually centralize the internet or say the internet is Indian? Right? If you can do that, then we can talk about national cryptocurrencies and stuff. If not, it's a ridiculous concept to even pick up. Now, we were looking at what the Searchcoin network was doing, and that's really interesting because what he's doing is he's using Bitcoin as the underlying factor to create the payments for search. So it's basically what Google AdWords is doing. He's going to go ahead and automate it all underlying in an underlying fashion, right? Now, I'm not sure which is the company, but what they're doing is they're doing the same thing with ISPs as well. They're allowing people to go ahead and purchase broadband or additional speed from different providers by exchanging bitcoins, and all of this happens as an underlying part of the network. Now, this is where I feel Bitcoin should not be used. This is where altcoins should be used. They should be part of the underlying network, and they should be the ones that do not really cause too much spam. While the blockchain focuses on what it's made for, and that's money. There is nothing. There is no altcoin that is. Yesterday someone was talking to me about zero coin. They said that that actually adds value to over Bitcoin, but it doesn't because you can build a layer over Bitcoin and mimic what zero coin is bringing in.
Right.
Right? You can do this with absolutely any altcoin, to be honest. Any altcoin right now, because there is nothing that they can do that is different from what Bitcoin is doing. If you reduce the number of confirmations, you're reducing the amount of security of that transaction being run. So Bitcoin has kind of got it right. It's got it in the right time. I'm not saying that if Saffron coin didn't come out in 2009, it wouldn't have been a success. It would have been a success, but it didn't. It's come out now, and it's an offshoot of Bitcoin. Whatever you can do with these things, you know, you look at these guys in Trester and they say, "I'm not competing against Bitcoin. We are doing our own thing." And then you look down a paragraph next, and what have they written about their product? They say that Trester is highly divisible. It can be sent easily. So it's this exact same properties of what Bitcoin has that's being brought in over here. So from my perspective, that really makes more sense.
Right. And let's talk a bit about blockchain, the technology behind all this. So our basic argument here is that what we are saying is that no altcoin is ordering, is offering a value over the blockchain technology. All of them, they are tweaks in
They
the
are offering, but in very small scale roles.
right,
Uh,
right. Basically, they're tweaking the blockchain here and there and offering some additional thing on that. Like say Namecoin. Namecoin seems pretty useful. Uh,
registering domains and stuff. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
So that's a brilliant use case in terms of how it has been used, but it's not really being used as currency. I mean, it can be exchanged and things like that, but it's more or less made for a purpose, and that makes more sense.
right. And like let's talk about Bitcoin as a medium of transferring value
Yeah.
between parties that don't trust each other. So the other day one of my friends was telling me, like they play League of Legends, and the other their friends play Dota, and both of them are MOBA games, but they are rivals of each other. And people, they don't want to leave their community, they don't want to leave their high score and things like that. But if you offer them if you offer them bitcoins to transfer those high scores onto the next game, so people might be able to transfer over. So it's basically transferring value over to parties that don't trust each other.
Yeah. It,
So
it,
I thought it was very interesting.
it unfortunately against the terms of conditions of most games. But yeah, Bitcoin can actually do that. So yeah, even I was a part of EVNI for about 4 years, and I was ranked one on a server. So I understand the passion that goes behind gaming and how Bitcoin especially can make a massive difference in terms of gaming, especially if gaming starts adopting the blockchain as its backend. Because right now, I don't believe in any game you can transfer value between players.
Right.
Yeah, that's not allowed. It goes into banking and AML and stuff like that. So that's pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's another use, definitely a good use of it.
Right. So basically, my point is that Bitcoin as a medium of transferring value. Like since I'm a programmer and a computer programmer at that, so in our artificial intelligence class, we were taught that incentives are required to game a system, and most of our algorithms that we learned were based on incentive maximizing. So here we have invented the economic incentive, and
Yeah.
I'll try to give you a scenario. Like suppose there is a robotic mouse and there is a robotic bird, and the robotic mouse is it's cleaning the roads and something, and it's stuck somewhere in mud or something like that in a puddle, and it pays bitcoins over some network, and the robotic bird comes and rescues it. So right now, for this to be possible right now in 2015, you need the bird and the mouse to be from the same company. But since now you can transfer value over to some other companies, basically the mouse and the bird can be provided. If the bird could be a drone, and these services could be provided by different companies. And since there is a mechanism to transfer value over, they can coordinate with each other. So it opens a big avenue in artificial intelligence and robotics, basically.
Yeah, I do believe that this is the currency for IoT. This is exactly what your microwave is going to be using to, your fridge is going to use to place an order to your local store. This is exactly what your light bulb is going to sent to the electronic store when it runs out of energy, and so on and so forth. Um, Driverless cars, in order to gain priority of where you stand in the roadblock, you pay by cryptocurrency, and the car moves out of the way, and you move forward. It depends on how urgent or what's your need at that point in time. So yeah, you're right. It just opens up the world to a bunch of things.
Cool. I want to talk to you a bit about mining. So first of all, I know of a couple of people from Delhi who are pretty invested into the mining scene. They are big miners, and they run about several around 20 or 50 between 20 to 50 gigahertz uh, they're mining. So first of all, what are the I mean what do you feel about the mining scene in India? How many miners do you feel are there? Secondly, what coin are they mining? Primarily Bitcoin only, or do you see them mining Litecoin and other altcoins? And third question is, would you, what would you suggest for people, to mining Bitcoin in India? So, maybe they could move on to some energy efficient things like electricity is pretty cheap in India compared to the world. So, why aren't we seeing many miners over here?
Right. So I've seen a lot of miners along the way, but really no hardcore enthusiasts. I think the biggest enthusiast I've met till now is MK, and he does a couple of petahashes himself. So I've never seen it really catch on in India, primarily because it's a constant investment game. You've got to keep investing back into mining. You've got to keep increasing in order for it to go forward. Uh, in a place like India, I don't know whether single entities can emerge as miners. Rather, if we look at what other people are doing in terms of embedding ASICs into electronics to pay for themselves, that might be a much, much, much larger game in India. So, for example, your Tata Sky box, it has got an ASIC chip and it's constantly mining off that energy and paying part of your bill as well. That could be huge for the decentralization and things like that of Bitcoin in India. I do not see mining to continue going on as an earning point in the future. Once it gets into mass decentralization, once it's into appliances, once it's into your car, your bikes, maybe even shoes in some time, who knows? Once it reaches that point of decentralization, it's going to be very difficult to actually pinpoint and say, wow, look at that guy. He's got 5 petahashes. Bitcoin is the best coin to mine. Do it this way. Do it on a mining pool. Mining pools, exchanges, wallets. These are, from what I can see, these are all bridges to the larger structure that Bitcoin can actually make happen.
Right. My point is that here and there on the Bitcoin Talk forum and some other places, we often see many Indians, buying and selling. For example, right now we have a sale for about 50 plus Ant Miner S3.
Yeah.
So it's being done by an Indian. So such sales happen, and I feel pretty strong mining scene going underground in India going on, and there is no need to basically declare it or something. So I guess it's going on, and nobody cares. But my point is India has all kinds of weather and favorable situations. China is doing pretty well in the mining scene, and one of the prime reasons for that is basically they are doing it in favorable weather, and they have cheap electricity. If you compare the cost of electricity in India, if somebody sets up a big mining plant in India, it should be really successful. And given if they do it in some cold place like Shimla or something, it should be really successful. And on top of that, India has a lot of natural resources going on for us. So you could bring the government on board. I mean, basically my question here is, you keep on meeting people, a lot of people, some of them investors and all. Do they ask you about mining, or are they more interested in the trading scene only?
Uh, phew. Yeah, they do touch up on mining, but I've never seen that kind of a crazy interest from investors. And you're right in several ways, Supinder. In fact, I think you saw the one which we did in Bombay with Nishit Desai. a couple of weeks back. So that was primarily to talk to investors about mining and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether the approach is right, because obviously I can do a couple of things at a time, and what we're trying to do right now is look at HNI investors, people who can actually afford to get into mining, because mining is a long-term payoff. Because right now, what's happening is that I've met a lot of clients whom I've sold. I think I used to have a lot of those USB miners, right?
Right.
And those people don't touch Bitcoin right now under any circumstances. Okay, so
Okay.
it kind of drove away little bit of adoption because the wrong kind of people got into mining.
Right.
So
So
that's
that's
really,
pretty much expected of any technology, you know. Any new technology is first used by
sorry.
I say that any new technology is first used by criminals, be it guns or be it ships or be it the cable network or be it the internet or Bitcoin or whatever.
Right.
They are the people who see the prime incentive before something is regulated and controlled, and they jump onto every opportunity and the risk scenario. So it's okay that the criminals got onto this first. That's fine, no problem. Happens with every technology. But since you say there are not many people into mining and all, do you think getting government on board would be a good idea here? If I go talk to maybe say Himachal Pradesh government and I tell them uh, this is the monetary benefit that they'll reap out of it, and this is the kind of electricity and requirement and all that. Do you think that will be a good idea if somebody could stay in the race? I mean, if somebody could really stay in the race.
Why not? I mean, it's definitely a good idea. If we can get a government on board, yeah, that's. I mean, you have a long-term backer. You've got ability to actually run a valuable set of equipment. Uh, yeah, why not? Definitely. We've tried. In fact, we have spoken to a couple of people. I think you remember Subvolatile.
Yeah, right.
He had also tried talking to ARP and things like that and tried getting things moving, but yeah, nothing moved. But if there is a serious drive and things like that, you should be aware that a lot of people are thinking along the same lines in terms of trying to get a large player, government or non-government, doesn't really matter, at least a few large players on board to start exploring mining in India. So Suril Desai is kind of running that bit from Bombay. You should kind of reach out to him because these guys are also quite well connected and things like that.
Cool. And are you a regular part of the Bangalore meetup scene?
No, after I kind of handled it for about 2 months in the beginning, and then things became too hectic, so I gave it off to Sunny. So now it's become the Unocoin meetup, so I kind of avoid it.
Okay.
But we are looking at starting something new. I'm not sure if you're aware of Vikram.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get you there.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't get you there.
Yeah. So we are looking at restart. Yeah. So instead of doing the meetups now, so what's happened in the meetups throughout the meetups is that uh, we were calling people in. So it was voluntary people who knew about Bitcoin who were coming in over there and then sitting and listening to us talk for an hour or so about it. So instead of doing that now, we've changed our approach. I think you've seen what we've been doing with CoinSecure.org. So we are tying up with schools, colleges, corporates. Literally, I mean, we've got a huge pipeline in terms of companies in Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, and things like that. And we are just going to go out there and start talking about Bitcoin, make a little bit of noise, and see where it goes. I think that is a slightly hybrid approach to meetups, because nothing much is getting accomplished at the meetups right now. It's a bunch of people who already know about Bitcoin coming there and then talking about physics.
Right. So the thing is, once these startups, these meetings and all that, they catch on. People start coming. They're usually hijacked by somebody with a good marketing agenda or something like that. Like
Yeah.
what happened in the Delhi meetup was many people, they were working really hard to get it get it going, and it got a lot of audience, and there were many regular visitors. Even Wikipedia, they offered their Center for Internet Society for us to hold meetings, and it was going pretty good. But then we had scenes like there was Amit from the one running high cart and all that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
they held their own session, and it was a very expensive session in some five-star hotel, and some people got together and did that. So that kind of disheartened people and really demotivated them to attend the meetup. So that community, kind of dissolved there. And similar, I mean, this kind of thing happens twice or thrice. So yeah, I'm with you here that
Yeah,
a
the
meetup or
exact same
something
thing
is
happened in Bangalore as well.
yeah.
It's the
I would
exact same
say
thing. We got over 1,000 members over here. We had over about 40, 50 people coming to CIS. So if you don't know, the Delhi CIS was also something we organized from out of Bangalore. And Sylvester Savolatli was kind of running that until things kind of got out of hand.
right.
So we tried the exact same approach. It didn't really happen. So now we could do it. You could restart the meetups. A lot of them are still hanging around and things like that. But it is a bit tougher now to get the audience because now most of the people who know about Bitcoin who've been to meetups, they're not going to really come to too many anymore.
Right, right. But still, India is pretty huge, and we could get something going. There is a lot of interest over here in Chandigarh right now. I'm in Chandigarh, so I see a lot of interest over here, and regularly I see people approaching me for something or the other. Mostly talking about altcoin, cryptocurrencies, mining, and trading. So let's talk a bit about trading. What I want to talk to you about is what is the arbitrage scene in India? I mean, first of all, what do you feel about the volumes? Recently, I pulled out data from Bitcoin charts about the volume being traded on local Bitcoins,
Yeah.
and that volume was around 4 million rupees for past few months on an average. So, first of all, what do you feel is the volume? Around how do you feel is the volume? Is it rising? Is it constant? Are the same people buying and selling to each other, or are new people getting interested in this?
Yeah, there are people getting interested. Not going to go into too many specifics. As you know, even we are kind of getting there with
Right.
CoinSecure. A lot of things are moving now. We're kind of getting ready to come out of beta and stuff like that. But no, I don't see the kind of arbitrage opportunities as there are on the out of country exchanges. One of the key reasons with that is the kind of trades that are happening on local bitcoins right now. 99%, maybe even 100% of them are happening as cash trades where people are not very comfortable with disclosing their identity. That has pointed out to be the one factor why people are not able to display a decent volume on exchanges itself in
Mm-hmm.
India. You are very right. There's tremendous interest. It's mainly a lot of repeat customers who are coming back. People who have already gotten into Bitcoin. They're either arbitraging on out of country exchanges like BTC or something that doesn't really require any regulatory approach. And they're kind of coming back to local Bitcoins and buying and selling and things like that. That is something which I'm aware of that's happening. But yeah, there is going to be a bit of a paradigm shift as we kind of bring more of these people on board onto regular platforms and exchanges and try to get them kind of stabilize at least the numbers that can we can show in India.
Right. So, like, if we consider examples of some famous exchanges like Huobi with China, with Japan and China, or maybe OKCoin and Coinbase, BTCE, and all of them. Usually, it's pretty easy to arbitrage. Let's consider a scenario. Let's say I have a friend in America
Mm-hmm.
who wants to send money home, right? And they buy bitcoins from there. I mean, let's say we open a Western Union competitor, so he sits over there, I sit over here, and we do our KYC AML, we do all the background checks. He accepts cash over there, buys bitcoin, instantly sends it over to me over here, and I sell it over to CoinSecure. I sell it over at CoinSecure, and then maybe I get the cash rolling, and maybe I deliver it. So, in case we do this, what do you feel is the arbitrage opportunities with other countries? Like, how difficult would it be to, open such kind of an exchange that would work in India for Indian customers as well as American, or maybe for Indian and Australian, Indian and
Yeah,
Canadian, basically developed countries
so
where
to be frank,
a lot of
this
Indians are
right
there.
now, in fact, especially when we're talking about other countries and things like that, there are just too many regulations that are getting involved at this point in time. Uh,
Mhm.
we are looking at it very aggressively, without getting into too many other plans. We have been studying the landscape, talking to a couple of other countries and things like that. It looks promising. There are a lot of players who are starting to come up with global exchanges and things like that that could prove to be the answer. Now, owing to the fact that India is also very interested in Bitcoin, and I'm talking about the government and people like that, they are also looking at it as an innovation. They don't want it to be stifled. So I do believe there's tremendous scope in where this can go, but that solely depends on regulations. If it remains in an unregulated state, it will still catch traction. It'll just not be viable for mass adoption, and that's something which everyone has to get on board with. That if Bitcoin has to get into mass adoption, it has to be shown in its in a regulated light as well.
Yeah, cool. And I mean, you visited some schools and colleges, so I mean, the youngsters are pretty excited about Bitcoin. Whenever I talk to them, they're really happy about this because usually they can't have their own independent bank accounts. But
Right.
what do you think they plan on doing with this? Are there do you hear of some forum or maybe a site coming up that offers jobs to everyone or something like that for Bitcoin in India?
Yeah, we could do something like that. In fact, something which I noticed is that the kids are interested in Bitcoin, but not entirely from the banking perspective. So even the one which we did at Lucknow, my key aim was to address Bitcoin in terms of how it can enable them as a science, as an art, and in commerce.
Right.
So I'm not restricting it just to the money aspect of it. What I want students and people like that to understand is that when they come out of their colleges and when they're trying to do their thesis papers and their projects and they're experimenting with their coding skills, they start to understand that money is no longer a barrier to build an application right out of school,
Right. Uh,
right?
right. So, considering the Indian scenario, just 3 to 4% people, they have their personal internet, and just let's say it's around 13 to 16% Indians, they have internet reach in India. So, if there is an aggressive marketeer who approaches the rest of the Indians with some other altcoin, it would be a big market. India could take off some other alternative coin, and basically the argument against this is like there can't be many internets. So for a true global currency, you should be able to have a singular currency all over the world, like Bitcoin. So that is the argument that I hear against this. So, here Bitcoin is a bit different from internet because you could have like internet is a network of networks. You could have a lot of cryptocurrencies, and maybe you could have crypto coin exchanges that help you exchange say Bitcoin to Lakshmi coin or whatever.
So, Skag, let me ask you one thing to start with, okay?
Yeah,
Now, we are talking about getting multiple cryptocurrencies and things like that in the space. Uh, how do you know that those cryptocurrencies are actually going to survive anything? How do you know that once you've invested half your life savings, it's not going to be a 51% attack on it? How do you know
exactly,
that? So
exactly.
eventually, what's going to happen is that almost every cryptocurrency has died because of this, because people do not have too much of an idea in terms of what exactly they're getting into already, even with Bitcoin. They're not 100% sure about it. And despite which, there are so many others coming up along the way. Now, I repeat, and you look at it from a perspective of absolutely every cryptocurrency that has come up, they have all failed. I mean, there is nothing that has held monetary value. There's nothing that is, and I'm talking about short term again. I do understand that most of these will rise again over the next year and a year and a half. They will find places to do things as exactly what you're saying. But the scope for scams and things like that are just increasing with things like this. You know, Bitcoin
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. You're right about that. But the thing here is that first of all, even if I directly copy Bitcoin, and I issue it all over India. Uh, what happens is, let's call it Bitcoin 2.0, and I publicize it as the next version of Bitcoin or something like that. Basically, it's an altcoin that is the exact copy of Bitcoin, and the thing that ensures its security is basically the network hash rate that is securing the 51% attack, and the number of nodes that are running. So right now, attacking the nodes is much easier than attacking with the hash rate as a 51% attack. So basically, a consensus attack right now is much cheaper and much easier to do even on Bitcoin than the 51% attack. So let's say I do that, and I'm able to secure the hash rate. That will be pretty doable, but it would need a lot of money and a lot of marketing skill, and a lot of Indians, basically not Indians, people who invest into mining and all that. My question here really was that, like internet is the network of networks, maybe we can have a network of cryptocurrencies. But for that to happen, like there are routers in between countries, we need to have exchanges in between cryptocurrencies. So, do you see any cryptocurrency exchanges going on in India? Not INR to Bitcoin or INR to Litecoin, but Litecoin to Bitcoin, Bitcoin to Dogecoin, something like that.
I think BTC sorts that problem out globally, right? So I think that's the main reason why most other cryptocurrency to cryptocurrency exchanges haven't really taken off too well, because the volume rests in certain places already. Uh, uh, we did try looking into Litecoin. We might roll it out in the future because people have been requesting it as a feature. Uh, but out of personal conviction, I do believe that the altcoins do have a purpose if they do their thing right. But honestly speaking, that the scenario you gave me, where someone comes and spreads an altcoin across India, it's something like going up to people and saying and trying to sell them. I don't know, trying to sell them something uh,
Right.
just because they don't know that there's something better out there.
The hypothetical scenario that runs in my mind is something like, Ambani or Adani. They catch hold of Bitcoin, they realize the opportunity, and maybe if Reliance starts something like this, or let's say if other banks start something like this.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I was saying, like, suppose a big company like Reliance, or like Axis Bank has really taken the stride here with their app called PingPay, which we are seeing aggressive marketing
Oh,
about.
yeah. Really
Yeah.
nice.
So let's say a big national company jumps onto it. Maybe some bank, maybe like say Kotak Mahindra Bank, or because we know they are looking into into Bitcoin, and we know that Raghuram has also talked about Bitcoin, and he's pretty optimistic about Bitcoin. And so basically, if a big company like Reliance, they start an altcoin or something like that, people would catch on to it pretty easily without digging the technology much, just by the word of mouth, or the aggressive advertising that they might undertake. So it's a possible scenario, but my concern here would
So,
be to to
so
fight against
basically,
such a scenario.
what is this altcoin?
I'm sorry.
I think the big questions here would be, what is this altcoin going to do? Is it going to be in a global scenario? If it is going to be in a global scenario, not even Google can make it happen right now. because Bitcoin is already
Right,
cemented.
right. Right now, exactly, exactly. Not in a global scenario, but it's basically enabling micropayments. And see, what's happening right now is the banks have realized that Bitcoin is instantaneous, and it's pretty easy. Just using a mobile phone, you can send money over to someone. So they're trying to compete against this through by developing really nice apps, and they've made it pretty easy, like the access ping pay. You can send money over to someone from WhatsApp or maybe Facebook or whatever. So Axis Bank has made that pretty easy for their customers. And that is the approach other banks are taking. But one thing that they can't do is they can't eliminate the limit. They can't allow sending maybe 1 rupee or 5 rupees to someone. They can't allow sending a million rupees to someone without a check. So the way to do it would be an altcoin. And once the banks or a big companies, they realize this, they might jump onto it. But
Um,
my concern here is primarily that if such a scenario happens, to fight against it, and if a lot of people are educated about Bitcoin and the advantages that it would hold over those coins, basically the freedom scenario and all that, we would need exchanges that allow you to exchange currency between various cryptocurrencies. So,
yeah.
do you see something like that happening in India? Do you see some kind of exchange coming up that allows you to exchange, or do you see CoinSecure's future accepting Litecoin or things like that?
I can see that happening in the short term, but not as a long-term solution. Even if it happens as a short term, it's just going to be an interim. So, like I said, we have discussed at CoinSecure whether we are going to be accepting Litecoins. Our architecture is very easy for us to add this on, Java-based and stuff. So it's not very difficult for us to do that. Um, the key point I want to make here, and this is a question I asked this guy, Siddhant Gotiwala, about 4 or 5 years ago. Really nice guy. Knew a lot about Bitcoin. And I asked him, what happens if Google comes out with a coin tomorrow? What if it becomes Google Coin? And what if they start marketing? Uh,
Right,
now, step one is, why would Axis Bank or Kotak Bank come out with Kotak Coin? Okay, if it's a centralized solution, no problem. Let it happen. Centralized solutions are on their way out. They can make it look nice, and that's all they're doing. We saw this happening in the US as well. Once banks lost their fancy, companies like Dwolla took over to kind of give the customer the trust factor. That's exactly what PingPay is doing as well. And these are the steps that show that the banks are losing their grip and they're trying to hold on. Now, if a bank releases an altcoin and makes it popular across India, it is either a centralized solution that people are not going to be able to relate to in a couple of years, or it is going to be a decentralized solution, which is something a bank will not do.
right,
Uh, okay, so this is something which I figured out about 4 years ago when Bitcoin itself was not popular, and the question was, what happens if Google comes out with a coin tomorrow? And this is the exact thing. If it's going to be decentralized, if it's going to be so awesome that the world accepts it, of course, as a commercial, as a business idea, we like taking on Litecoin, we could do whatever Kotak coin as well. That doesn't really matter. But in the grander scheme, centralization is on its way out. There will be a need for centralization, but it will most likely happen in a more multi-sig escrow format. Even that is going to be very electronic.
right. So yeah, that was what I was saying. It would definitely be something centralized with some large scale mining to go for them since the start to prevent a 51% attack or something, like involving the Indian government or something like that. But I can see a future, where the banks, they unite and they fight against this. Because right now, if you talk about the Indian scenario, I would say uh, the Bitcoin scene is as strong as the banking scene in India, in my mind. The reason for that is, although we see banks everywhere and things like that, the people who really use bank day in day out is limited to 2 to 3% of Indians, because just 3% of Indians, they pay their taxes. So even if what we are saying here is 3% of Indians use their bank accounts day in and day out, and 0.0001% of Indians use Bitcoin day in and day out. So both of them are really small numbers, and going forward, depending on the rate of propagation, anything could catch on.
And that's it, you know. See, based on the numbers that you also mentioned, I had blocked it out a couple of days back in terms of the exact numbers that an NPCI official gave us. He said
Yeah.
that 90% of Indian transactions are in cash, 7% are in check, and 3% are electronic.
How much in cash? Could you repeat
And
that?
90%.
Right.
India is already a decentralized economy. If we are using so much cash, peer to peer transactions, face to face, hand to hand, it is already in a decentralized state.
Right.
They are
Right.
trying, yeah, it's easier to actually move it further decentralized than to centralize everything because it will cause a lot of friction. It could cost 20, 30 years for the government to actually re-centralize most of this economy.
Right, and that we see that in the taxation scheme of the government, where they are lowering the direct taxation, and they are really increasing the services tax and things like that, where they're trying to tax the money coming out of people's hand, because they know that they can't tax the money going in, the incomes and all. And the 3% figure that I quote is by P. Chidambaram himself for last year.
Yeah,
So
yeah, you're right. 3% is maximum because that's the only electronic transactions happening.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't catch you there.
You were right. The 3% tax thing that you just mentioned. That's probably because there's only 3% of electronic transactions happening.
Right. Yeah. So, in the grand scheme of things, anything could catch on with India, and Indians, they want to keep their money to themselves. 45% of Indians have bank accounts. 55% of them don't, and even if most of them could be, really really poor population, they might wanna keep their money to themselves, their hard-earned money to themselves. So a big opportunity I see, in India about this.
I'm not writing off altcoins. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, people who get them in their hands at this point in time of the economy, they either going to stuck the worthless asset, which they can exchange over time, or they will run into the problem of, if merchants are willing to accept an altcoin in today, believe me, they'd rather accept Bitcoin because that gives them global coverage, that just opens up the world.
Let's talk a bit about the Bitcoin 2.0 applications and the decentralized distributed global public ledger that blockchain offers, and kind of applications that are being built on this. So we know a lot of applications are being built on this, and a lot of applications are using Bitcoin as the backend. Like for example, there is a fitness app, and there are many examples. So, do you see something like that happening in India? Do you hear of startups coming up in India?
Not startups. I think some of the larger players are already focusing on it. Infosys is moving Finacle to work on to run on the blockchain, or is including it in some way. I know that IBM is doing something about it. I know that Accenture is looking into it. I know that a lot of people have been talking about the Internet of Things. Um, I know that there's a nice guy in Hyderabad who is working on blockonomics, blockchain analysis as well. So yes, there are people who are definitely looking into it. But I think what the key focus from the larger players is the base fact that the first implementation of the blockchain is money. It's
Right.
Bitcoin. So I think that's where most of the focus has gone until now. And it's only now that it's catching up. And even what Vishal is doing in terms of Searchcoin, it's a step in that direction to automate the underlying network rather than create an altcoin to support that part, which could probably not be exchanged in the future for Bitcoin.
Yeah, so like some new applications, like say registering assets on the blockchain and things like that, they'd be pretty land specific. They'll be national startups. So do you see such startups coming up in India? I mean, I'll request you, like if you're aware of such startups, do post them up in the forum. And one of the personal requests that I have is the forum would not have a section to discuss the blockchain technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that definitely makes sense. Uh, I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but probably as and when they come up, we should start something up on the forums to discuss this.
Maybe you can pitch on to the colleges that you visit, because they are really the budding entrepreneurs who are living in the future. And
Skang, your voice is breaking up. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that definitely makes sense. I can't think of any off the top of my head right. Hello. Uh,
yeah,
there we
can
go.
you hear me now? Does this work now?
Yep.
Yeah. So I was saying that you visiting colleges and all that. So maybe you can pitch on to the budding entrepreneurs over there.
Sorry, Skang, didn't hear that.
I was saying that you're visiting many colleges and schools in future. So maybe you could pitch on to them about the various innovative companies that they could start over this.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, definitely makes sense because this is exactly the kind of message which we are trying to spread over here. That there's still so much innovation left in the world, and yeah, definitely.
One thing that I want to talk to you about is the can you hear me?
No, no.
Hello. Yeah. So the last thing that I want to talk to you about is the fees. The fees right now is around a rupee and a half. The standard fee for a 50 kb block. So how do you see Indians incurring such a huge fees?
I didn't get most of that, mate. You want to type out the question?
Just a second. Can you hear me now?
So the standard fees right now is 1.5 rupees for a standard block. Isn't that too high from the Indian perspective? Um, how much does the block contain?
It's for 50 kb. The standard 50 kb block is 1.5 rupees, and then about 2 cents, and then for additional 10 kb, people usually pay 0.0001 Bitcoin additionally.
Right. I'm not too sure if the fees have been adjusted in a very long time. In fact, I would have to look into this, Gang. I've not looked into this number as such as yet. Are you talking about the combined fees that needs to get a block accepted?
Yeah, so the thing is there is no such hard limit on the fees that you need to pay. The higher fees you pay, the more payouts you get from the
Yeah, yeah,
miners.
yeah.
So
I'm not too sure because once again, I guess I would have to check. So what this would be from 25 Bitcoin blocks, so 25. That's 250. It's 1.5 rupees, not too bad, right? Because you're moving about 25 Bitcoins in each run. I know that it's going to be dropped sometime around the near future. Yeah. Uh, so I guess we go back to that old thing of you don't really need to pay a fee. It's just the amount of time that it's going to take to push
Exactly,
your
right.
transaction through. So if I've honestly not sensed this to be a high fee, which is why I've not looked into it as yet. It seemed
Exactly.
quite
So,
reasonable so far and things, especially since you can club transactions when you're sending them out and things like that. You get to save fees in several ways. But if you don't want to pay a fee, just don't pay a fee. It's just going to take a day or two and you still get your payment.
yeah, even yesterday I sent out a transaction without a fee, and it took 12 hours or something. And it was a very low priority transaction with a lot of dust in it, but it still got through in 12 hours. So I
Another
was
thing you
pretty
can
happy.
do, Skang, is that if a payment gets stuck like this, you can double spend that payment again and it tends to go through. You still control the private key even if the payment has gone out. So it's
Right.
not like you've lost that money as well. You just need to double spend it and once again you get your payment to go through. But yeah, if there's an urgency in the financial transaction, if you need that to get across, please do pay a fee. It makes sense.
Right. And one tough question for the last question that I have. What do you feel about the early adopters problem that cryptocurrencies have? So any new cryptocurrency that comes on, the early adopters, they have an advantage.
Mate, your voice is breaking in and out. You want to type that out again? Okay. And what stops anybody from becoming an early adopter, especially with decentralized? Because everyone has been given the invite at the same time. So yeah, okay. Let me explain it to you in a slightly different way. Now, it does give an unfair advantage to some, but if we look at any technology for that matter, right? If we look at what happened with the internet, or with computers, personal computing. Microsoft was the first company that came into that space, and they started Microsoft, Apple. They made a lot of noise, commercialized it. They started going crazy. Uh, Google came on about what 9, 10 years ago,
Hmm.
or Facebook, or most of these. These were not early adopters either. These guys had the right idea at the right time and they came in and they made it happen. And this is the exact same thing which is going to hold good with Bitcoin as well. There were some early adopters who saw some benefit in it and they jump in on board. In time, what will happen is that more and more innovative players will start coming into the market. You will have the rat provider and the bird provider. Those guys are going to make a lot more money than the early adopters and so on and so forth. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this has to happen. It's a correction that will take some time, but it will happen in the long run.
Right. Benson, thank you. And if I may ask, when did you get into Bitcoin first, and how did you hear about it?
Me, I several years ago. So I used to play Evany, and I was really good at it and stuff. But I was getting really hooked onto it and decided to get rid of my account. And it was a really good account on that server, so I did not want to sell it for nothing. And then I realized that I can't get money into India even through PayPal. It's too little, and that became a huge problem. So at that point in time, someone just asked me whether I wanted Bitcoin, and I didn't know what it was, but it sounded like fun, and that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it. I had no clue about it, and uh,
And when was that?
2011ish. Uh, Not too sure, mate. Around 2011, I think, is when I got rid of that account and stuff.
All right. You know what? I was there on the cryptography mailing list where Satoshi released the paper, but I never paid attention to it.
Sorry?
Then, just a sec. Yeah, can you hear me? Uh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, so I was there on the cryptography mailing list that came out where Satoshi released the paper, but I really ignored that email. I never went on with the discussion that went on over there, and after that, after just in February, I guess, of 2010, in final year of college or something like that, I guess. I don't remember the time exactly, but I remember that I heard about it on Hacker News, and it didn't get a lot of traction. Then after that, the thing with me is I'm a frequent customer of the dark web, so I keep on visiting various Tor sites and all that just to explore what the journalists are doing, and pretty independent. Most of the independent media journalists they use the deep web. And they basically talk to each other through Tor, and all the independent blogs are there. So I am a visitor there. So I heard of things like Silk Road and all that on the deep web even before they were famous over here. That is how I got into Bitcoin, and there was a time I mined Bitcoin on my CPU and all that. But right now, I mean, those were some wonderful times, and there was a time when I really, I formatted my hard disk with 40 something Bitcoins on it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
lots of fun stories. I know this guy in Hyderabad who formatted disk with 100 coins. I've lost my fair share as well, but they were kind of a bit easier to come by back then. I still keep telling people, especially those who've got zero point 0.5, zero point 0.6 bitcoins, I tell them, keep it. In a couple of years, you're not going to see numbers like this happening. To see your first bitcoin and things like that, it's not going to happen in the future.
back when I had those 40 Bitcoins, each Bitcoin, they weren't even selling for $1. And I thought, like, even if I sell these 40 Bitcoins, I'll be getting like $30 or something. So it's worth nothing. So I should be on that.
But if you're selling your 40 bitcoins, make sure you sell them on CoinSecure, okay?
Yeah, right. So
uh,
thank you, Benson. Really nice session, and I got a lot of questions answered. And maybe we
yeah,
could
same here, mate. Thanks a lot
regular
for
session.
that as well. It's a pity we didn't have a lot more people on board. I think we should do something about this. Yeah, you know what? Vivek should kind of probably talk to you and coordinate this, and we can probably set up something a bit more robust, so we can have more people participating and talking about it rather than a fireside session.
Exactly, exactly.
Thanks for joining, Shika, as well.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
we'll catch up on the forums and kind of plan something out for the next one.
Right. Thank you,
See
Benson.
you guys. Bye.